All right, well, welcome everyone to our EASI update on this International Children's Day. We're so happy to have our friends and colleagues from all over the world joining us, and I'm really honored to be here with the EASI authors. So we're going to jump in and have everyone introduce themselves. We are recording and streaming on Facebook, so you'll be able to catch the recording later as well. So I'm Dr. Zoe Mailloux, and I will be sharing some updates about the evaluation in air sensory integration. But to begin, I'd like to introduce the co-authors. Let's see, shall we start with you, Susanne?
Sure, I'm Dr. Susanne Smith Roley, and I've had the privilege of working with this incredible team and all of the amazing volunteers to get the EASI started and continue, and we're looking forward to the work and going forward. So yeah, Diane, you want to go next?
You need to, yeah, there you
go. Sure. Yes, I'm Diane Parham, Dr. Diane Parham, and I teach occupational therapy at the University of New Mexico. And I've had some students involved with learning the EASI, and I'm just excited about what we're going to hear today.
Great. Okay, so before we dive in with our update, I think Susanne is going to share a little bit, and then Diane, and then we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty update information.
Well, we were talking about just the context for this meeting, and I went back to learning the Southern California sensory integration tests and then subsequently the SIPT, and we've used the SIPT for decades now. And it's a brilliant tool. There's no getting around it. And the factor analyses that were done using the SIPT and prior to that, the SC, SIT, have really given us an amazing foundation that allows us to look at that assessment data and make predictions. And, we can, I'm testing a lot of kids in my practice, and when we see those SIP scores, you can see the level of difficulty that they're going to have. You can see the kinds of difficulty they're going to have. And it also gives us a roadmap for designing effective interventions that can be play-based, because we know what they like. We're using a strength-based approach, and what they're not going to like, because you can see the level of difficulty that they have. And then the other thing is, because we've used these tests for so many decades, they're predictive of engagement or participation in a wide variety of occupations, and then we can see the effectiveness in what we're calling distal outcomes, or those participation areas. Well, and so then we have the EASI, and the EASI we hope to be a much more accessible and affordable group of assessments that can be used around the world. There's a growing population of children, adolescents, and even adults who have these needs, and we'll be able to better identify those sensory integration concerns that interfere with their well-being and participation. So anyway, I just wanted to start by saying how excited I am that, we're going to have a valid and reliable set of tests that we can use that will help us understand these kind of issues in people, in a broader set of people, and then, apply those necessary tools for a better life. That's it.
Well, I'll pick up on what you're talking about, Suzanne. And I would agree that the most important thing here is that the EASI is going to be used to make life better for children, for young children right up through early adolescence too. So the range of children that we can assess with a very objective, performance-based approach, as we did in the SIP, it's broadened now. So that's very exciting. But I'm also very excited about how these tests are going to be useful for educating other people. And the first people I think of are parents of, the children who are being assessed, but also other professionals. So I'm thinking of doctors, pediatricians, for example, psychologists, nurses, social workers, I think that we can share through this test our knowledge of sensory integration, and we're always linking it back to occupation, as Susanne was just saying. So educating about what is sensory integration, but also the different kinds of sensory integration difficulties that AIRS had identified in her research and that we'll be able to assess with the EASI. The EASI is very firmly based in the AIRS sensory integration frame of reference. So it gives us critical information about strengths as well as weaknesses in sensory integration. And as Susanne was suggesting, there is a link to everyday life functioning, and that's what we care the most about. So it's going to provide critical information for intervention planning. And one more thing is that I'm excited about the possibilities for research with this instrument. So just as we learned so much, and there was really interesting international research using the sensory integration and praxis tests, now we can look at the EASI. And here's some of the first things I think of is it would be so interesting to look at the impact of culture and whether that does make a difference across different cultures worldwide. Now we have this international data, which is just amazing. And it may or may not make much of a difference. But that would be, or maybe in some circumstances it does. It would be very interesting to know this. And for example, does it make a difference whether a child is growing up in a dense urban environment, a big city, versus out in the countryside in a rural environment? There may be different sensory experiences that might impact sensory integration development. So we can use the EASI to study that. And then also, as Susanne was suggesting, we can study how different skills across the EASI tests relate to ability to function in everyday life occupation, both the strengths and the weaknesses. So I'm excited about the clinical possibilities as well as the research, the knowledge that we can learn by doing studies using the EASI. And that, of course, is then going to inform our intervention, our assessment, and our intervention planning.
Okay, well, thank you both. I could not be more honored to be with the two of you as co-authors on this set of tests, and just to see the comments coming in from around the globe is so inspiring. I think this is the most special community of people, and to have a project like this that involves so many people from around the world is just amazing. Is my sound okay? I'm looking a little glitchy. Is it okay?
It's a little glitchy, Zoe, but I think we can understand.
Okay, I'm going to keep going, and if it's a problem, let me know. Maybe I'll turn off my camera. Sometimes that helps when it's a heavy program like this. Well, welcome. For anyone who listens, I keep saying that this is a new day in sensory integration, and it's really such an exciting time. For those of you who've been around for a long time, and I can see in our list that we have some of our friends here who have been with us for decades, I'm sure you know what I mean, that this is such a critical turning point. As Susanne and Diane were sharing, these new tests offer so much opportunity around research and education. And first and foremost, our practices really helping more children and families around the world. And, we're at this really a turning point where a lot of effort has systematically been planned. Susanne and Diane and I are part of a collaborative that has worked in concert with many of you around the world to make some very important things happen that has really strengthened sensory integration. We have increased clarity. I'm going to just turn off my camera and see if that helps a little bit. We have increased clarity around sensory integration with the trademark and naming of AIR's sensory integration. That has really helped so that we can identify what is and what is not this approach. We had a lot of things that are not this approach that were somewhat confusing. We have some incredible new tools for conducting research, including the AIR sensory integration fidelity measure that is now well established and has been used in a number of studies that has really helped to increase the strength of our work. And we have such strong evidence now with this publication coming out this year and or last year, I guess, and mounting evidence for this approach. We have other studies underway, publications in preparation that will add to this body of evidence. So it's really an exciting time. We did want to acknowledge our friend and colleague, Dr. Roseanne Schaaf, who's been, has done so much. She's been so dedicated and contributed so much to this evidence base, and she's been really involved as well in the development of the EASI projects, the research in the US portion. So now we come to a time where we very soon will have this new set of tools. And the purpose of this meeting today is to give everyone a little bit of an update. I know some of you who are joining are maybe a little bit newer based on the responses. Some of you have been involved from the very beginning. So we're just going to give you an overview, answer some questions, give you a little update. First, we just want to say thank you. It is every single day an inspiration to think about how many people have contributed time and money and effort in so many ways. And for those of you who've been involved, we just cannot express our appreciation enough. It has been a very inspiring and amazing journey with all of you. So thank you so much that helping us get to where we are. Here we are in 2021. We started this project in 2014. And since that time, we have 20 tests that have been developed to assess the core areas of sensory integration. The tests and the items have gone through studies for validation to check reliability. We've revised the test, we've ordered items, and we have completed some really wonderful cultural adaptation studies. In fact, we are waiting any day for a paper on the Spanish adaptation to be published in the American Journal of Occupational Therapy. It's supposed to come out in June. Today's June 1st, so check your mailboxes for that paper coming out anytime now. And we have many other papers in preparation. Many of you who are joining us today are our region leads or our country leads. We have our 20 areas of the world with over 100 country leads who have been coordinating teams of testers from every corner of the globe. Over 2,000 volunteer testers are enrolled in our data collection system. That's just, every time I see that number, I am just blown away that we have so many people willing to give their time and energy. And so far, we have over 2,500 from children from around the world who are tested. So we have had a bit of a pause, we'll come to that, but still, it's quite an accomplishment that in this time with really no funding, we've had some wonderful support from entities, our own entities like the Collaborative for Leadership in AIR Sensory Integration, our own universities have been helpful, but we have not had any specific funding for this project. So it's really amazing to see how much has been accomplished based on sheer determination and will of therapists. So I'm very afraid I have the flags wrong, but I'm just going to take a chance. I did want to acknowledge that we have 9 countries who met their population goals. Really amazing. And I just have to shout out to South Africa, who that team has tested over 300 children, which is just amazing. And then we have over 50 countries. Again, I really apologize if I got your flag wrong, but I spent some time on this and I think I have the correct ones. So these are the countries who've already enrolled subjects in the data collection. We have many more countries who have testers enrolled, and I know they're going to be coming up next, but we have over 50 countries who have tested children and entered that data already. So to all of you who, against all odds and overcame so many obstacles, thank you so much. For those of you who are in the wings waiting to start testing, we know you're doing your best, and we can't wait until you're able to enter some data. So this is just a quick little set of reminders for our testers, because when we first envisioned this session today, we thought maybe we can use this to have kind of a meeting with our testers, our 2,000 plus testers. But then many more people were joining us. So I just want to give a few little reminders. Remember, and in case you don't know this, we are putting our efforts into keeping the test sheets as the most current set of information on the test. The test sheets are translated into over 15 languages. So every time we find a little correction, a little clarification, under the careful guidance of Shay McAtee, we very meticulously ensure that those changes get made in every language. We are not putting too much effort into making corrections right now in the manual, because the manual will need a lot of changes once we finish the project. So the test sheets are your most reliable current set of information. Don't print too many test sheets in advance if you're printing them, because we do sometimes find little things that need changes. If you're entering data, we cannot analyze the data without basic demographic information. So we need at least age, gender, and verification of eligibility. Some of you have been getting many emails from us in the last few weeks asking, can you check on this subject? Can you check on that subject? So if you have any data entered and you might not have entered age or gender or eligibility, please go back and fill in that information. If you're not able to complete testing, the child, refuses, or the child is not able to come back for some of the tests, then leave those test scores blank and enter the reason for the missing data. Pandemic hit, did not finish testing, child was crying, whatever it was, just let us know on the missing data form. And when you will not be entering any additional information on a test, mark that form complete. At the bottom of the page for each test sheet, there's a place to mark the form complete. The little circle will turn green, and that's important so that we know that you are finished testing that one test. So we're at a pretty exciting time. We're ready to start looking at the data. I just love this picture. So we are so blessed to have an amazing family, a whole family, and I think even little Luna is helping. So we have Patricia Grady Dominguez, who is working on her PhD. She just had her proposal approved, and for her PhD, she will be conducting the preliminary analysis of the data that we have so far, which is one of the reasons you have been getting our emails, because we wanted to include as much of those 2,500 plus data sets that we have. And that's why we've been asking you, please fill in the age and the gender so we can move forward with those data sets. So Tricia will be conducting those analyses, and very fortunately, she's married to this wonderful man, Dennis Dominguez, who is a computer programmer, and he is writing the EASI scoring program. And so that both of those projects are underway. They're working literally side by side, as you can see, with when Luna doesn't need their attention. Isn't she adorable? And we hope our plan, and I don't know if Trisha's on today, but if she is, I don't want to make her panicked, but we are hoping to have the scoring program and the analyses completed, we're saying by September, October of this year. And that we hope that about that time is the time that we can begin. It's just going to be a beginning, but that we can begin to use these tests in a clinical way. We will have some preliminary normative data available at that time. So, just move this over. So one of the, some of the questions that you have, these analyses are going to allow us to see if we can combine data from different countries and regions of the world. That was something that Diane mentioned. We're very curious about if that's going to be possible. Will we be able to eliminate some items completely? We think that's going to be possible. When you are developing tests, we start with many more items than you will use in the end. We've already shortened the test quite a bit, which might be a little difficult to believe for the testers who probably feel like the tests are quite long, but they were, most of the tests were nearly twice the length that they are now. So we probably will eliminate some additional items. We hope to establish some discontinuation criteria. Eventually, for certain, we will not be giving all of the test items to at all ages. So we probably will not have, we will have items that are not given to the youngest children, to the oldest children, and in between. Okay. And then some of the questions that some of you asked. So who can use the EASI? The EASI will be made available to professionals who have completed training in the test. And depending on the country, there's some variations in the groups that are accepted into the programs, but generally occupational, physical, speech and language therapists, in some parts of the world, psychologists, medical doctors. I think those are the main groups. Suzanne, did I miss anybody? I think that's right. And those professionals who have completed training in the administration and scoring of the test. So right now that means completion of the equivalent of modules 2 and 3 in the Class C program. And until the tests are completed, we are keeping the training within the Collaborative for Leadership in Air Sensory Integration. At some point in the future, I'm sure that this will open up to other groups, but the tests are changing. As you just heard, we have to make changes in test sheets in many languages. Until the tests are finalized, we need to keep the training a little bit more confined. So when will it be available? Well, as I said, we do hope to have some kind of at least ballpark scoring, be able to give practitioners a general idea of how children that they are testing might be doing. We hope by September or October of this year, based on the preliminary norms. We do not expect all of the data to be collected until at least the end of this year. Our current deadline for testing is December 31st of this year. That's with hopes that things continue to move in the same direction that they have been with the pandemic, and that that countries can get back to resuming their testing. And so that's our current plan. Nothing is set in stone. If we've learned anything over the last 2 years, it's not to be too definitive, because things can change, but that is our plan. And the data analysis will help us to know maybe how much more data we need. If we don't need additional data after some point, then we won't need to keep collecting, but we'll see how that goes. So I think most of you know, we consider the EASI an open access test. That doesn't mean open source, that it's open to anyone in the world, but the way we use that term is that these tests are not owned by any for-profit making entity. So the costs that are involved are the costs that it takes to just to obtain materials or to maintain the basic structures of the test. The current cost for the materials of the EASI ranges probably from the equivalent of about 200 to 300 US dollars. And that's to collect the materials, the 3D printed shapes, the essential oils that we use for the scents, just the other basic materials. There's some variation because there's a lot of aspects of the test that are up to the tester, how elaborate you decide to be in your test kit organization, if you have fancy containers or if you use shoe boxes. So that creates some variability, but generally $200 to $300, it should be feasible to put together the test kit. That probably sounds like a lot of money to many people around the world. However, in comparison to the cost of test kits through publishers, it is quite reasonable. We are not planning on any specific cost for the scoring program. The initial access to scoring will be given to all of the testers, all of our international data collectors who submit at least 5 data sets. Those individuals will be acknowledged in the manual, and they will be given credit for the Class E modules 2 and 3, which is the access point to the tests. And then anyone who completes those modules through the training programs will also have access. What we feel comfortable saying at this point is that that access would be for at least a year. We don't know yet what the ongoing costs will be for maintaining the scoring site, the program. You know, we have already through Class E spent tens of thousands of dollars on developing the scoring site. So we probably will need to have some support for that, whether that comes through sponsorship or some kind of nominal membership annual subscription, but we will try to keep that cost very low. We anticipate maybe $25 a year or something like that to have access to continued scoring. It will certainly not be a per test administration cost. And we will, as I said, we will do everything we can to keep that cost as low as possible and still maintain the tests and the structures around it. We have to be realistic and be sustainable. How long will it take to administer and score? The current test, most of the normative data collectors are telling us that in 2 sessions, it's taking approximately 2.5 to 3 hours to give the test. That's because we are testing all items at all ages with all children. We're at least attempting all the items with all children. Our goal is that this test would take between an hour to an hour and a half to administer and score, and we think that's reasonable. We know that many people ask for screening tests and they want a short test. I think our general belief is that to understand a child well enough to plan effective and appropriate intervention, you need to have a comprehensive assessment. And we have found that in our own practices with the sensory integration and praxis test and with the test prior to those tests. So I don't think we're leaning towards anything that's going to be a quick screen or assessment, but we do think that we can help you all to advocate for the need to have enough time to provide a comprehensive assessment if you are asked to take children's lives into your hands and do your best to offer them appropriate intervention. So we were not expecting a pandemic. We did not see this coming. I don't know if any of you did, but we thought we would be finished in 2020. So although we were not expecting this pause, we have not been surprised by the resiliency that you've all shown, sticking with this project beyond the original commitment of, we thought we'd be finished in 2020, celebrating Dr. Ayer's 100th birthday. But we don't mind putting off a party. We can continue to anticipate our time together and having a party together. So we are planning to have that celebration next year in 2022 in July in Redondo Beach, California. So hopefully things continue on the path that they're on and the world starts to reopen. We hope that we know that things are so varied in different parts of the world, and our hearts go out to all of you who are in parts of the world where things are really difficult right now. And we understand that, we've been there, but we just are hopeful that things will move in a positive direction and that we'll be able to gather by next year and to see this project come to fruition. And it's still possible to participate. So if you're joining us and you're considering being a tester, although we thought we'd be finished by now, we're not. So please consider joining us. Many countries, most countries actually, we only have those 9 countries who have met their goal, and most countries are still testing and could use testers. So you can send me an email and I will get you to the right person to find out who you should be in touch with in your country. And we just want to end the formal part of this presentation by once again saying thank you. Thank you to all of you for your efforts to help children worldwide be more fully understood. That has been our goal and our theme from the beginning of the project. And we're still there, and I think we're well on our way. So let me stop sharing. I'll put my camera back on and try again. And I think we are fine on time. So we can address any questions or comments if there was anything that came up. Oh, Heidi is with us. So fun to see the comments. So Marco, what do you think? Are there any questions that have come in that need to be addressed or?
Not yet. I just want to say to people, if they want to participate with some questions, they can put it in the Q&A. That would be the best place for us to see and to keep track of those questions. I also have Katie on Facebook, on our Facebook page. So if people that are seeing us from Facebook, they can also post their comments with questions. I think for now, there's a lot of people thanking your work. Zoe, Suzanne, Diane.
I see Cherie's question. Okay, all right, and Mary's. Okay, all right, so let's tackle some of these. So Cherie says she hears that I can administer the EASI in record time. I don't know if that's the rumor, probably that Suzanne can complete the SIPT in record time, and I think I'm there with her. You know, what Suzanne and I know from administering many SIPT evaluations over the years is that and I've said this to so many of the students, tests such as the SIPT or the EASI are difficult tests to learn. There's no question about it. You are being asked as an adult to use motor planning, to use praxis. We are not used to having our praxis challenged as adults. Most of the things that we do in life as adults have become routine motor skills. So when you take these courses, you are having your own practice skills challenged in a way that maybe is new. And they are difficult to learn. There are details. However, they are not difficult to give once you learn them. So how do we give them in an efficient amount of time? We practice so that we are no longer struggling when we're giving the test. And it's going to be the same with the EASI. We encourage testers to find the places where they're fumbling and bumbling and taking extra time between test items, between tests. And then you shorten the time. So that's really the way. And I see Christine saying that she learned about her own praxis. Suzanne or Diane, do you have anything to add about the testing time and the amount of time we need to understand children more fully?
Well, it does take, there's a learning curve with the new tests, like it was with the SIPT. And But then, you know, after you get into a routine where you understand the materials, then it's a lot easier. So I agree. I think hang in there during that learning curve, because at first you're trying to monitor what you're doing and it's hard to watch what the child's doing. But once you get into more of a, rhythm with the materials, it goes by quickly. And I will also say, from doing the EASI, we had hoped that they would be sensitive like the SIFT, and they are. So we haven't tested a lot of children with the EASI yet, but the ones that we've tested, it picks up those things that we care about in terms of those constructs. Even in the typical population, you can see, well, they're really good at this piece. Well, this piece, they're kind of average. They're not as good. So I'm very eager to see the scores, because I do think that they're sensitive to the kinds of constructs that we're looking for.
Diane, did you want to say anything? I can't tell.
Well, I was going to chime in. But I think Susanne really covered it. It's just the repetition, and it is just critical, because then it becomes automatic. But it is important, especially in the beginning, that you're constantly checking back to make sure that you haven't changed something. Maybe it's a human thing that we do. We quit checking to see if we're doing it accurately, and we kind of drift. I think that's actually in the literature. It's drift. You're drifting away from what it really actually is. And that happens even to experienced testers with published tests out there. So it's so just be aware of that, and really be very conscientious about it and checking yourself. And it will become more automatic, where you won't even remember how much effort it took originally.
And Diane, I think I'd like to give you a chance to let people know about the SPM2, but I'd like to just say in context, and I think you agree with this, that instruments like the SPM were meant to supplement some of these direct performance tests, that Dr. Ayers developed questionnaires asking many of those items as a supplement to the direct performance test that she was using. And I think some of the drift we've had is a tendency to rely only on the questionnaires. And I don't think that was the author's intention or Dr. Ayers' intention. So, but maybe you can just share a little bit about that.
Yes, of course. I'm sorry about the dog barking back there. We're really distracted by him. Oh my gosh. So wait, run that by me again, Zoe, so I can get recentered here.
Giving you a chance to mention that it's coming out soon, and in the context of assessment, where that fits.
Yes. Yes, it should be published. We're hoping June 1st, but it may take a couple more weeks. It may be mid-June. And generally, I am pretty vocal in saying that I don't believe that best practice would involve just using the SPM. It's very valuable, okay? It gives you valuable information about the perspectives of people who know the person the best. And for children, that would be, the primary caregivers, the parents, or whoever that person is caring for the child. So it gives you valuable information, but unless it's a very special circumstance where there's no way you could administer a test in person. I know that happens sometimes, okay, especially if somebody lives very, very far away. The first thing I would try I would see if I could do something remotely by video and maybe coach a parent, I would try that, but a lot of times that won't work. So if you're in a really unusual situation where it's absolutely impossible to use a performance test, and when I say performance test, I'm thinking of something like the EASI or the SIFT, where you're asking the child to perform a task and you're directly observing their performance. That really is going to be important to have. So I think the two together, the EASI plus the SPM2, is really ideal. And of course, there are additional things you can do in assessment as well. So informal observations of the child's spontaneous behavior in natural environments, observing the child, at home or in school or out in the community playground. That would be very helpful if you have access to that, including time available. But yeah, I think a good, strong performance test such as the EASI is going to be an essential tool to have for sensory integration assessment.
Great, thank you. And Mary Hamilton asked if there will be a graph printout. We are planning on that, and I thought about showing you the prototype that we have, but I didn't want to pressure Dennis. He has seen it and he believes that he can produce something very similar, but we are playing with a full color graph that will have some correspondence to the colors that we've been using in our interpretation tools. We are trying every strategy that we can think of that will make the whole process of assessment and implementing EARS sensory integration easier. This is a complex theory. These are complex tests. We do not want to pretend that they're simple, but our goal has been to simplify where we can. When Diane and Susanne and I came together to begin thinking about the EASI, we thought about tests like the SIPT and thought, well, we know what we want to measure. How do we get through some of the weeds? How do we take away some of the really difficult concepts to understand when you're learning tests? And so at any rate, we do plan to have a graph. We expect it will be color coded, and we're trying to make it, put it together in a way that will help testers to see groupings of functions so that they understand the children more easily.
And getting that, maybe Suzanne, maybe you can help us with another question from Mara that complements that. She's asking if you anticipate that the patterns of SI, which the SIP has already identified, will be the same patterns which the EASI may identify.
Well,
Do you have any idea on that?
yes, I mean, I do, because we're very conscientious about the constructs and examining the constructs discovered by the factor analyses and to replicate many of those constructs. And we then added items, that could supplement what we already currently had in the SIPT. So yes, we expect that there will be some similarities in the patterns, but we'll have additional information. For example, the vestibular test related to postural control, we will have a standardized tool rather than just observational data. This will be a standardized test on the EASI. We will have an auditory localization test, and we have a performance test on reactivity. So we will actually have additional information that goes into those factor analyses, and I'm really excited. And then we can also look at the correlations with the SPM data. So I don't know, that's the fun part for me, is the unknown, right? Because what we hope to do is answer more questions, be more refined in our thinking than we have right now. I don't know if Zoe, you and Diane have ideas about that.
Yeah, it is the exciting part. There is a graduate student in South Africa who plans to conduct a factor analyses. I told her I couldn't be more excited to see the results of her project. So we do know that the patterns that we understand from the SIPT did not come only from the SIPT. They came from studies with tests prior to the SIPT and prior to the Southern California sensory integration test. So we do have reason to think that some of the associations are going to be quite similar. And as Suzanne said, with some new tests, we were excited to see some variations as well, and to understand more fully what kinds of functions go together well, and what kinds of functions maybe indicate different types of problems. Diane, did you want to say something on that? I'm looking at you thinking.
Yes. And I was thinking also about research. So as you were talking, I was thinking about how it would be interesting to do a longitudinal study like I did for my PhD dissertation. Okay. And that was, I know.
Do we have to go back to Fresno?
No. We had some fun in the hot tubs in the backyard of the person who let us stay for free and collect data. So yes, it's a big project. It was my PhD dissertation, but I looked at whether the SIP test, the sensory integration and praxis test, predicted reading and math achievement. And that's because, well, one practical reason, I was getting a PhD in special education. So it had to be related to special education, right? And so I looked at, I compared children. I started when they were 6 to 8 years old. And I had about half the sample were typically developing children doing fine. And the other half were children with learning disabilities, not with a low IQ within normal limits, but struggling with academic learning, struggling with learning to read and math and all of those things. And the SIPT predicted 4 years later how they were doing. It was so powerful. It just blew me away. It was beyond my expectations, well beyond. So it would be really interesting to do something similar to that, look at predictive ability. But, there's just so much you could look at too, just at the same period of time, not doing a follow-up later on, but just looking at the relationship of certain EASI subtests with certain, with particular functional abilities and collaborating. As you were speaking, Zoe, I was thinking about the oral perception tests. And I was thinking then, really with all the EASI tests and especially praxis, collaborating with speech language pathologists would be really exciting. I think they would have a lot of ideas. And I know my colleagues at University of New Mexico in speech pathology, speech language pathology, they were so excited to hear that sensory integration is now recognized as an evidence-based practice. I mean, they are really strong, most of them anyways, the ones that I've encountered. We share a lot in common, and there's a lot we could do together, and especially with these EASI tests coming out, looking at speech abilities and language comprehension. And I'm suspecting, remember Jean Ayers did a lot of exploring how praxis was related to language development. So will we see that again, with the EASI tests?
Yeah,
well,
thank you.
And we also have the Family Life Impact Questionnaire, so very practical social participation and activities of daily living. And, so we'll have that data also. So it'll be very interesting to me to see, if the EASI will correlate highly or some patterns or some constructs with those activities of daily living.
And since you were mentioning the tactile perception oral test, there was a question about it related to COVID. And so I do just want to let the testers know that we did have epidemiologists review our procedures for sanitizing the oral shapes, and they felt that it was a very appropriate way to ensure that there was not transmission of any viruses with those shapes. So, just remind people, I know maybe many of you have not been to a restaurant in a long time. We've just started to go to restaurants again, but restaurants don't throw away their silverware and their glassware between patrons. Using hot soapy water is an accepted way to ensure that viruses are not transmitted. So we are feeling comfortable with this approach. Of course, if parents are not comfortable, then that test may not be administered for the time being, but it does seem to be a safe way to use those items. I know Heidi asked about how the data collection was going in the US. Well, I have to say, the US is quite behind. We really need US testers. So if you happen to be a US tester or you know someone who can join us, please. The United States we're well on our way with vaccinations. Things seem to be opening up. So we need to do a big push in these next 6 months to get our numbers up. And if you're from the US, I hope that you're going to join us. Canada, well, all the countries are doing their best. Canada's in good shape. You know, lots of countries are well on their way. You know, some countries are really struggling right now still with the pandemic. So we have a lot of variability, but we're hopeful. Wherever you are in the world, we hope that you'll be getting ready, that you keep practicing, that you get your testing materials fully ready, and you start thinking about where you could test typically developing children, so that as soon as it's safe, you can get out there and test children. So we up those numbers. Are there any pieces from the SIP that you find you missed the most? I don't know, Suzanne, I haven't missed anything but so far, but we haven't really started using the EASI in clinical practice yet. I think we're so excited about some of the new measures, the ocular, the test of ocular motor control and praxis, and the ideational praxis test, and the direct measure of sensory reactivity, the postural control test. There's so many tests that are filling gaps that we had with the SIPT. Where we've had a little reduction of tests and test items is in the areas of visual perception and visual motor a little bit. And I think most of us have felt that we have some alternatives there to the specific test of sensory integration. There are lots of tests of visual perception and visual motor skills. So we do have some other options if we felt like we need them.
Well, and let's not forget that the SIPT isn't going anywhere too soon. I mean, the SIPT is still currently a commercial test that's available to everyone. So if there was something on the SIPT that you still wanted to do, you could certainly do that. So there's no reason you couldn't use whatever you were missing or you thought you were missing.
I think we probably have 5 more minutes.
So there was actually 2 or 3 questions about normative data in adults. I don't know if you want to mention something about the plan for that.
Well, I'll try, and then I'll let the others chime in. We went to age 12, thinking that would be a good expansion of age. So from the EASI is for children ages 3 to 12, which is a wider range than previous tests. And we hoped that 12 would be a point where we start to see maybe some plateauing, maybe even some skills kind of peak at that age. We do imagine that in the future, there will be a lot more work with adults, our colleagues in the UK. There's also some PhD studies in South Africa going on with the EASI looking at adults. I do hear about the EASI ABC for adults, babies, and children, and I try not to let my brain explode when somebody mentions that. But I think there's potential for across the lifespan and looking at these functions for all of you out there to think about your future projects. Suzanne, I don't know if you have specific ideas. I know you've been doing a lot of work with the adults and with our friends in the UK.
No, I think I'm taking a deep breath because I think this is, it's been busy. I mean, I know we've had COVID, but it's been pretty busy behind the scenes to make the adjustments that we've needed to make. So, but I would love to see a baby test and an adult test. I would love to see that. But, as Diane was saying, she was a bright young star who did that amazing longitudinal studies. So our bright young stars who are out there in this webinar, okay, in the fashion that we were mentored, which is like, you do it. You think that's a good idea? Well, then you just do it.
And it's, I know it may seem like research is boring, but actually it's really fun. Maybe it's me. But I don't think it's just me though, because I think the hard part is coming up with, well, what exactly are you going to do? You know, what is your research question? And then what's your plan? That's the hard work. But when you're really doing it and then you get the results, it's really exciting to get like the printout of the results and, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And then to, you know, and then writing it up, that's a not easy, you know, it's a arduous process, but you get better with, like anything else, you get better with practice, you know. And so it's really actually exciting. And then to have a publication and then it makes a difference in practice, that's just the best. Really, it is. It's very, very rewarding, very rewarding. So that's why so many people, when they start doing research, a lot of people continue on doing it, you know, because it is very, it's stimulating for your own mind, but then there's some good that really comes out of it when it impacts a lot of people's lives. So that's just very, very rewarding.
And I will say that we're already seeing some really great potential with the open access nature of the EASI for research. One of our colleagues, Dr. Carla Osterau, is using EASI with a research study of children with autism. Dr. Schaaf has a consortium of researchers, autism researchers, who are showing a lot of interest in these tests. And the fact that we can train people online and make the test available in a very cost-effective way. You know, you print your own test sheets, you score online without so much cost. I can just see that the research doors opening. And there are lots of little projects you can do. If you think, oh, I'm not someone who can do research, come talk to us. There are many projects that need to be done. We have some of our testers around the world, including Marco, and many of the people in this who are participating today who did some of the preliminary studies to look at inter-rater reliability. How two testers score similarly or not. Concurrent validity, how do some of the tests on the EASI compare to the SIPT? We are running in place to keep up with the data that we have so far to write these papers. We have quite a few papers in process right now. Our friends in Israel have put together a paper. So there are a lot of projects you can do, and I think the accessibility of the tests will make that even more available. So I know we just have like 2 minutes. So Marco, was there anything you saw that we didn't cover that seems critical? We'll do our best. I know there are some, you know, very specific questions. Whoever is asking about research in Korea, yes, of course. We have children tested from South Korea, and then we have a team there, and so everyone in the world is welcome and part of this project.
Sure. Zoe, I think there's a question that might be interesting to end up. There's a person asking if testers get some certification in EASI administration, or maybe it's a good place to.
Okay, so I'll just say again that the international data collectors who submit 5 usable test data sets. So those of you who've entered data, if you didn't give us the age or gender, I'm sorry, we won't be able to use those. But if you submit usable data sets, 5, then you will get credit for our modules 2 and 3, which will give you access to using the tests, and you will be acknowledged in the manual. So that's what we can say for now. And then Marco, did you want to share your screen briefly just to let people know about the webinars coming up starting next week?
Yes, thank you for that reminder. So Suzanne, do you want to share something about this?
I do. We had an exciting opportunity arise to partner with Southpaw Enterprises. They really wanted to do something educational for their consumers, and they thought we could partner with them. And so we have come up with ASI Treatment Tuesdays. So it will, you'll see the dates, and we're very excited, you know, and of course, because Southpaw is involved, they, you know, they have a lot of equipment, and it's, so how do we use those affordances? But really it's going to be focused on intervention in different settings with different populations. And so next week we invited our dear loved ones, my daughter, who recently completed the doctoral program at Thomas Jefferson University and owns a practice, Center Point for Children, and Dr. Annie Morey, a longtime colleague and one of our really respected instructors. And she also owns a practice in Redondo Beach, Play Sense, and they are going to present, or well, a discussion, you know, on really what I would consider classic ASI intervention in a private practice setting. And then we'll move on from there, and we have ideas for, everybody's not all committed to the dates, but we'll be looking next at ASI with children with challenging behaviors, and then we'll look at a hospital setting and school settings. And anyway, so stay tuned. We hope you will join us. I'm very excited. I think that this is going to be fun.
Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, and people that already got an email for this webinar will get another emails for when this ASI Treatment Tuesday happens. So there's no need to do much.
Okay,
So,
and just one thing, it's just one time a month, not weekly.
Right.
not every
Exactly.
We're back to
Tuesday.
work now. So, once a month till the end of the year. Then we'll think of something else.
So I just took a glance at the participant list, and it just overwhelms me to see your names out there. So many of you, country leads, region leads, testers, people who have been helping us develop these tests or teaching these concepts over so long. Thank you all so very much from the bottom of our hearts, and stick with us. We can do it. We can finish this project. We can make a difference. I think this is a model for the world. We have a lot to teach other groups of how to work together and collaborate to get things done. So thank you all so very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next year in Redondo Beach for a summertime party.
And thank you, Zoe, for all of your hard work on this too. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marco.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Stop recording. Stop Facebook.